Okay, in this example, let's see if we can parse a given problem with the definitions that we've learned so far about population, sample, parameter, statistic, variable, and data. So this is an example 1.1.1 on medical malpractice. So an insurance company would like to determine the proportion of all medical doctors who have been involved in one or more malpractice lawsuits. The company selects 500 doctors at random from a professional directory and determines the number in the sample who have been involved in a malpractice lawsuit. Identify the following components of a given scenario. Okay, so what's the population in this example? Well, the population is going to be all medical doctors with one or more malpractice lawsuits. Now, the sample is a subset of this population. So it's not going to be all, it's going to be a smaller number. And so we were told in this example that the company selects 500 doctors. And it also tells us that they were selected at random. So that's also important to know. So our sample is 500 doctors selected at random from the population. And that population came from this professional directory. Okay, next, parameter. Now, a parameter is a descriptive statistic that describes a population. So what's the parameter? What's the descriptive statistic that this particular problem is interested in? It's interested in the proportion. So the parameter is the proportion, which will be a percentage of medical doctors with one or more malpractice lawsuits in the population. Okay, next, statistic. So a statistic is a descriptive statistic that describes the sample. Now remember the relationship between a population and sample. We're really interested in some property of the population, but a population is too large. It would take too much time, too much cost, etc. So we're interested in a specific parameter, so specific attribute of the population. In this case, we're interested in a proportion or a percentage of a population. So when we take a sample from that population, we're also interested in the same thing, except we're interested in the proportion of the sample. So the statistic that we're interested in is going to be the same descriptive statistic. So we're interested in the proportion of a population. We're going to be interested also in the proportion of a sample. So we're going to be interested in the proportion of doctors with one or more malpractice lawsuits in the sample versus the population. So pretty much the parameter and the statistic, we're interested in the exact same thing, but a parameter relates to a population and a statistic relates to a sample. Okay, variable. So what variable are we interested in? Well, we can call this capital M, to represent the data set of one or more malpractice lawsuits. And this will take the form of maybe a Y for yes or an N for no. So what will this data look like? Well, we're probably going to have at least two columns. So we'd have one column, which would be doctor ID. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, on down to 499 and 500. And then the next column, this will be our data set of M. This is going to be one or more malpractice lawsuits. And we'll have no, no, yes, to maybe no and no. So you can see our variable M is composed of labels. So M is actually a categorical, can't spell, categorical variable.